After 45 years of drifting into the void, Voyager, one of our farthest and most isolated machines, simply did something nobody anticipated. It turned around. Not literally, no. But what it transmitted was something unmistakable, a mirror, a loop, a glitch that indicates it might have run into something so alien, so unexplained, that even the spacecraft's venerable systems were temporarily thrown off. What followed wasn't a glitch in the system or a code error. It was a whisper from the boundary of space that echoed a terror scientists had long suppressed. Voyager 1 has possibly moved beyond a boundary that shouldn't be there. And in making that move, it might have confirmed that we never were alone in the dark. What did it register out there? What does it portend for Earth? And why are few at NASA beginning to wonder about the very fabric of space outside the heliopause? Let us proceed into the unknown. 2 spacecraft were sent out in 1977 with nothing but retrotech and astronomical drive. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were designed to survive 4 years, intended for a grand tour of the outer planets before dying in the cold emptiness. Instead, they became immortals. While all other machine humanity has sent out into the universe has long since fallen silent, destroyed by radiation, or drifted on without power, the Voyagers continued on past Jupiter, past Saturn, past the gas and ice giants, and then into something never crossed before, interstellar space. Their brains were primitive by today's standards, 69 kilobytes of memory, smaller than a typical modern email attachment, and a processor slower than a budget calculator from the early 1980s. And yet they plotted gravitational slingshots with mathematical precision, sailing through the orbits of planets to pilfer their momentum and propel themselves farther outward. They wrote back postcards consisting of grainy photographs and rivulets of raw figures, moons with shattered ice crusts, storms bigger than the planet Earth, thin planetary rings nobody had even realized were there. But deep space is not impatient. Year after year, to conserve power, engineers shut down heaters, cameras, and even entire instruments. Each shutdown was an unobtrusive funeral for some segment of the mission. But the spacecraft still spoke, their weak voices passing light hours of distance to be received by huge dishes of the Deep Space Network. For decades, scientists dreamed of the heliopause, the unknown boundary beyond which the sun's solar wind gives way to the interstellar medium. Voyager 1 reached it in August 2012, at 120 astronomical units from home. It was a triumph, a step into the galaxy. But then the first anomaly occurred. The density of the particles increased as it should have. But the direction of the magnetic field didn't change. It was strangely identical with the field within the heliosphere. This was impossible. 2 years later, Voyager 2 passed through the boundary and measured the same effect. The finding was unnerving. The edge of our solar system was stranger and more complex than theoretical models had suggested. Scientists attempted to reconcile the data, suggesting overlapping magnetic bubbles or localized distortions. But hidden in those arguments was a more sinister trend, fields acting with structure, as if sculpted by something. The interstellar medium was more dense than anticipated. Quieter. More structured. Too structured. Then in 2024, Voyager 1's signal reached Earth with corruption, initially assumed to be random noise. But the errors were coherent. Telemetry looped in cycles. Data packets terminated midstream. Even more puzzling, when standby systems were brought online to circumvent suspected malfunctions, the same faulty signal arrived. Subsystems never designed to output particular data formats were doing so anyway. The engineers termed it a reflection loop, as if Voyager had launched a signal, and something elsewhere had returned it, warped, changed, impossible to produce internally. One analyst likened it to shouting into a canyon that shouldn't exist and hearing your own voice mixed with someone else's breath. There were those who suspected it to be an onboard failure. Others began to whisper the other. Voyager had traveled through an area where its signals were deflected or replied. The Deep Space Network recorded it all. When researchers correlated the interference with cosmic ray measurements, plasma waves, and solar wind particle decay, they discovered correlations they shouldn't have. The anomalies peaked in conjunction with an increase in galactic cosmic rays that, in theory, should have been deflected by the heliosphere. And then the magnetic twist, kink in the field, slight but real, as if Voyager had traversed a membrane. Others attributed it to a dense plasma cloud. But others, more quietly still, hinted at artificial shaping, vast and alien technology. NASA finally put out a carefully crafted press release: partial signal recovery, continued inquiry, nothing to worry about. But at JPL, there was a secret task force assembled. Expertise in AI signal processing, quantum field theory, and astrophysics were brought in. A leaked source said the transmission had oscillation patterns that were outside the capabilities of Voyager's design. Something outside was changing or inserting information into the signal. Even more unsettling, the distortion started right after Voyager emerged from a sudden dip in cosmic radiation, as if something had been momentarily shielding it. Shielding, or testing. Scientists analyzing Voyager's trajectory detected minute but recurring deviations. These could not be accounted for by the gravitational pull of observed bodies. Dark matter was guessed by some. An unknown gravitational lens was suggested by others. But a single unpublished model proposed something even more extreme: a spacetime discontinuity. Not a black hole. Not a wormhole. Something different. A juncture in reality's fabric where information closes upon itself and time acts erratically. If true, it would be that Voyager 1 hadn't simply ventured further, it had moved sideways into another type of space. Then Voyager 2 started to behave erratically. Although billions of miles away, its signals had the same delays and tiny distortions. The chances of this occurring by itself were vanishingly small, unless both spacecraft were within the same, huge structure or field. This introduced the unspoken potential: the Voyagers weren't in open space any longer. They were within something. Among the public, rumors circulated. Amateur radio astronomers cross-referenced raw DSN data. Internet discussion boards dissected frequency changes and wondered if there was alien contact. Conspiracy theories erupted. Within NASA, opinion splintered. Some viewed an unprecedented chance. Others were afraid of contact, not the kind from Hollywood movies, but a cold, observational one. As one engineer said, "We're not in a dialogue. We're in a laboratory. And we could be the subject." The distortions are the mark of enormous engineering on an interstellar scale. Quantum interference zone, an area where quantum phenomena rule macroscopically, curving signals and trajectories. Information membrane, a surface intended to sense or react to high-speed objects that traverse it. None could be verified. All were disturbing. All Voyagers include a golden record: Earth music, greetings, and images, for anyone who may encounter it. We always thought it would float for millennia before encountering anyone. But what if it was picked up as soon as it reached interstellar space? What if that's the idea? One piece of the tainted data caught specific notice: a repeating sequence on the fringe of the signal's frequency. Too weak to be audio, too organized to be noise. Slowed down, it disclosed modulations hauntingly like some Earth languages, not in semantics, but rhythm. Officially, no one said anything. Off the record, one linguist termed it like hearing an echo of speech through water. For 45 years, Voyager 1 was our silent envoy to the stars, a worn, wandering piece of human determination. Clad in gold and binary, it bore our expectation that someday something out there might hear us. But never that we would be replied to. Not in this way. Because Voyager hasn't just reached the edge of space, it has pierced something older, stranger, and far more intentional than anyone imagined. A region where time twists, physics trembles, and signals reflect. A place that watches back. When Voyager sent that distorted signal, that looping cry across the void, it wasn't a malfunction. It was a response. The kind that doesn't need words. The kind that says, "We've seen you." Scientists may argue the anomaly. They can retreat behind models and jargon. But they can't alter the truth: the boundary of our solar system might not be a boundary after all. It might be a portal. And somebody, or something, just pushed it ajar. And somewhere, light hours away, two elderly spacecraft move silently on, further into the unknown, carrying with them the knowledge that we are no longer explorers. We are the explored.